Al and Sarah had been together for more than 20 years. It didn't start out as a smooth marriage, though, as Al came from a family of wealthy farm owners. The land they owned included apple orchards and strawberry fields. In a family where the oldest is over 60 years old, Al has worked on the farm from a young age, aged 10. After completing high school, he joined the army and served for 2 years. Upon his return from military service, Al took some time off to work on the family farm before deciding to turn it into a small cafe. When he started at the cafe, he took on the role of head cook and dishwasher. He had to clean pots and wash dishes as part of his duties, which contributed to a rapid increase in growth. Within just a year, Al's restaurant became popular among the townspeople and generated significant income. After all, his siblings had made it a point to marry and start families of their own. As a handsome young man, Al received ample attention from many girls, which led him to date numerous women before settling down and eventually becoming a father. Eventually committing to a particular young woman named Grace, who was a few years his junior. Due to his conservative family background, Al kept his relationship with Grace's secret until he finally decided to reveal it to his parents. When he informed his parents of his intention to marry Grace, they were adamantly against the idea. "Son, you don't know her at all. We've heard so many unpleasant things about her and we don't want someone like that by our dear son's side," Al's mother Irene declared. Rumor circulated that Grace came from an impoverished family with a questionable background, and whisper suggested that she had been involved with numerous. "Those are just rumors. Mom, they're baseless. I know Grace very well. She's a wonderful person and you should meet her," I insisted. However, his mother remained steadfast in her refusal. Unwilling to hear anything further about Grace, Al couldn't perpetuate his parents to change their minds, leaving him heartbroken. He loved his parents and knew that they had raised him to be the hard-working man he had become. They had taught him invaluable life skills and lessons. He couldn't go against their wishes, and part of him believed that they might be right to some extent. After all, they would never wish harm upon their son. Al felt at a loss about how to proceed. He deeply desired to marry his sweetheart Grace, but the malicious gossip had transformed her into a despised figure in the eyes of those around him. "I think we have to break up. I love you and I want to be with you, but my parents, you know how they are," Al told Grace. Grace was at a loss for words, reacting to Al's revelation. They stood there under a tree at night, their hearts heavy with sorrow. Tears silently rolled down Grace's cheeks without saying a word. She walked away. Al watched her bright summer dress disappear into the night. He would never see her again after their breakup. Grace moved to another town. Al hadn't dated anyone since that heart-wrenching separate. He became introverted, focusing solely on growing his business. His small cafe soon transformed into a bustling restaurant. Meanwhile, Al's parents searched for a suitable bride for their son. They considered several girls, mainly from families they knew well. Al's father Everett had a friend named Sam who owned a large trucking company. They met one day and Everett was aware that Sam had 3 daughters and was looking to marry off his youngest one. They arranged a big family dinner at Sam's house, inviting their children to. They hoped the young ones would take a liking to each other. Sarah, Sam's daughter, knew Al from high school. She was aware of his popularity in past relationships with numerous girls. At first, she was happy to potentially become Al's bride, but then hesitated due to his history. After dinner, Irene, Al's mother, asked if he liked Sarah. Al replied that he respected this parent's choice and was willing to give it a try. Sarah and Al eventually grew fond of each other, dating for several months, a year after their marriage. Sarah and Al had a son, Nick. They worked together to expand their restaurant business. Al was a quiet, hard-working husband who provided for his family, but spent most of his time at work or fishing with. He hired Stafford, the restaurant leaving Sarah in charge of its management with ample free time. Al decided to build another source of income. He purchased a semi-truck and became a trucker for the next 5 years. 2 years later, his daughter Ashley was born. He would come home once every 2 weeks and take his family out for dinner or to the mall. Despite having 2 children, Alan, Sarah didn't share a strong connection. He didn't communicate much with his kids either. Nick was a spoiled child who always got what he wanted, while Ashley was a quiet, studious girl who excelled in school. A year before Ashley was born, Al was on his way to deliver a load. He stopped at a gas station one night and encountered a woman named Kate whose car had broken down. Kate was 2 years older than Al, and from the moment she got in his, she showered him with questions. Al couldn't recall the last time someone had been so inquisitive as they drove through the night. He felt an inexplicable attraction to this stranger. When they reached the city, Al dropped Kate off. "Here. Call me if you ever get stuck on the road again. I take this route once a week," Al said, smiling and handing her a note with his phone number. After that encounter, Al couldn't stop thinking about meeting Kate again. He admired her outgoing nature, but felt guilty for having such thoughts. A week later, he received a phone call from an unknown number. "Hey, Al, this is Kate. You gave me a ride a week ago. Do you remember?" Kate's cheerful voice came through the phone, sounding like sunshine. On a rainy day, Al was stunned. His heart pounding in his chest like a wild drum. Deep down he had hoped she wouldn't call, but now there was no turning back. The memory of that fateful night flashed through his mind, her emerald green eyes sparkling like the stars above her laughter, filling the air like a melodic symphony in the lingering scent of her perfume that seemed to clinging to his truck for days after. As he hesitated to respond. This was it, the moment that could change everything. She invited him for a cup of coffee if he happened to be in the city. Al, who was at home in his hometown, quickly found a cheap load to deliver to the city and hit the road. He felt a mixture of guilt and excitement at the prospect of seeing Kate again as they sat in the coffee shop. Kate expressed her gratitude, saying that treating him to coffee was the least she could do to thank him for giving her a ride. They talked for hours. Al found himself captivated by Kate's wit and intelligence. As the minutes turned to hours, Al realized that this wouldn't be their last encounter. That night marked the beginning of a double life for Al. Every time he delivered load to the city, he made sure to carve out time for Kate, his heart raced with anticipation. As he approached her cozy apartment, Al felt alive in her presence. The weight of his mundane existence dissipating like morning fog under the sun's warm embrace. But with each visit, the risk of his 2 worlds colliding grew stronger. Al's secret renewal with Kate remained a well-guarded mystery, tucked away from the prying eyes of his friends, family, and colleagues. He knew that balancing this double life was a precarious act, teetering on the edge of discovery, but the exhilaration and happiness that Kate brought him made it impossible to walk away. Kate had been divorced for 6 years and had a 19-year-old daughter from her previous marriage. She owned a successful clothing store, which she built using the money she received from the divorce settlement. She lived in a comfortable 3-bedroom apartment with her daughter. Al became a regular guest, sometimes staying for over a week at a. Back home, Sarah managed the restaurant and took care of the household. She drove their kids to school and back, never suspecting a thing. She knew Al wasn't talkative and spent most of his time on the road when he was home. They slept together like any other couple. And Sarah never detected any significant changes in him. In fact, he became even more caring. He would surprise his children with unexpected gifts from his trips and occasionally brought home new electronics or furniture. Sarah appreciated Al's increased attentiveness, but she didn't know that this was his way of justifying his double life. His trucking company wasn't performing as well as he'd hoped. Although he had several drivers working for him, he couldn't afford to stop driving himself. He preferred it that way so he could visit his other family. The same year Ashley was born, Al and Kate had a daughter named Amelia born just 2 months. Sarah's concern grew as Al took most of the money they made from the restaurant business. He claimed he was investing in stocks, but in reality, he was investing in Kate's business at her request. Nick, finishing his senior year in high school, wanted to study law in college. Al paid for his tuition at a prestigious college, and Nick's life in the bustling city began. Sarah provided him with everything, but Nick was spoiled. He struggled in school, partied a lot, and spent all his money on drugs and Al recognized that Nick was spiraling out of control and urged him to withdraw from school, returned home and assist his mother. Nick, however, vehemently opposed the idea and chose to remain in the city. Al advised Sarah to stop sending Nick money so he would learn to be self-sufficient, having never worked before. This was a daunting prospect for Nick. He had borrowed money from his college friends and they soon stopped speaking to him. Evicted from the dorm, Nick temporarily stayed at a friend's rented apartment. With limited options, Nick found temporary employment at a car dealership, but it didn't pan out. After failing to close a single deal in a month, he was let go. Desperate, Nick secured a job as a pizza delivery driver. It was a simple job that paid enough to cover food and bills one day while delivering pizzas. Nick encountered an exceptionally beautiful young woman named Amelia, enamored by her beauty. He asked if the phone number on the order was. Taken aback, she confirmed it was, and Nick left. A few days later, Nick decided to text her, having never felt so drawn to someone before. As they got to know each other over text, their connection deepened. Eventually, Nick asked Amelia on a date and they had a wonderful time together. With Amelia as his girlfriend and best friend, Nick felt as if he had been given a second chance in life. Continued to work as a pizza delivery driver. Nick began to appreciate the value of hard-earned money and gradually gained independence for his. He called his mother to share his progress and she was overjoyed that her son was maturing. However, Nick seldom spoke to his father as their connection was strained by Al's demanding work schedule. Now, Nick had ambitious plans for his future. He intended to re-enroll in college, graduate, and eventually work his lawyer. He also hoped to deepen his relationship with Amelia and meet her parents, but unbeknownst to him, these bright plans would soon fall. After several months of delivering pizzas, Nick took courage to call his father and admit his past mistakes. He expressed his readiness to return to school, and Al, relieved that Nick had regained control, helped him re-enroll. Everything seemed perfect. On a typical workday, Nick asked his boss if he could leave early to meet Amelia's parents. He dressed sharply and picked up a bouquet of flowers for her mother before heading to there. As Nick arrived at the apartment, the sound of the doorbell echoed through the rooms. Amelia's mother, Kate, opened the door, her warm smile instantly putting him at ease. Dressed in a lovely evening gown, her auburn hair cascading down her shoulders, she exuded the timeless elegance that took Nick's breath away. "Welcome, Nick," she said, her voice as inviting as the aroma of the home-cooked meal wafting from the kitchen. "Please come in." Nick stepped inside, taking in tasteful decor in the warm atmosphere of the family home. You could see now where Amelia got her grace and charm. Kate led him to the living room. Its plush furniture and cozy fireplace, beckoning him to make himself comfortable. "I'm so glad you could make it," Kate continued. Amelia, her father went out to pick up a cake for dessert, but they should be back in a minute. "Please have a seat and make yourself at home." Eager to see Amelia and finally meet her father, Nick sat down on the edge of the soft cushioned couch, trying to maintain an air of composure. His heart raced with anticipation, his palms growing slightly damp as the seconds ticked by. He knew that tonight was an important milestone in his relationship with Amelia, and he wanted nothing more than to leave a good impression on her family. As Nick made small talk with Kate, he couldn't help but steal glances at the family photos that adorned the walls and shelves, the love and happiness that radiated from each captured moment, filled the room with undeniable warmth. He hoped that one day he too will be a part of those cherished memories. The door opened and Nick heard Amelia's melodic voice, accompanied by a deep, yet eerily familiar male voice. A sudden chill ran down his spine as his heart skipped a beat. He couldn't shake the feeling that he knew that voice all too well. As Amelia and the man walked into the living room, the shocking realization hit Nick like a tidal wave. Never in a million years could he have imagined that the man entering the room with his girlfriend would be his own father. As Nick turned around and saw Al, the cold shiver went down his spine. His mind raced, connecting the dots as a crushing realization set in. He was dating his own half-sister. The thought of his mother, who likely had no idea, broke his heart. He wondered how she would react when he told her. "Nick, this is my dad, Al." Amelia said, completely oblivious to the tension that had suddenly filled the room. "That this is my boyfriend Nick." Al stared at Nick, equally shocked by the revelation that his world was falling apart just moments ago. He had been excited to meet his daughter's boyfriend for the first time, only to discover it was his own son. Amelia, still smiling, noticed a silent exchange between Nick and Al, sensing that something was amiss. She assumed they must know each other and that some unpleasant history lay between them. "What's going on?" she finally asked. "Dad, Nick. Can someone tell me what's wrong with you guys? Why are you staring at each other like that?" Kate entered the living room and immediately sensed attention, and she looked at Nick and Al silently facing off. A cold shiver went through her body as well. She recognized a similarity in their features, embraced herself for the worst. While she was aware of Al's other family, she never anticipated a situation like this. Al, usually strict with Nick, spoke first. "Nick, I'm going to explain everything. Please don't freak out." Tears filled Nick's eyes as he thought about his mother, who was at home taking care of the family business while his father lived with another family. The unfairness of the situation overwhelmed him, and all he needed was for someone to speak up and acknowledge the truth. "How could you do this to Mom?" Nick asked through his tears. "She knows," Al finally replied, his voice heavy with the burden of his confession. "She's known for." The revelation struck like a bolt of lightning, leaving everyone at the table stunned. Amelia's eyes darted between her father and Nick, her face pale as the gravity of the situation began to sink in. Kay too looked shocked, her hand trembling as she reached for her glass water. Nick stared at his father in disbelief, his mind racing as he tried to comprehend what he had just heard. The thought of his mother living with a secret for so long was heart-wrenching, making him feel both betrayed and helpless. "Why?" he choked out, his voice shaking with a mixture of anger and sadness. "Why would she let you do this? And how could you live like this, knowing what you were doing to our family?" Al outside, running his fingers through his hair as he searched for an explanation. "It's complicated, Nick," he said, looking at his son with pain in his eyes. "Your mother and I, we made a decision a long time ago that we thought was best for everyone, but I never wanted to hurt you or her. I'm so sorry for the pain I've." Nick, his emotions still raw, turned to Kate with a mixture of anger and pain in his eyes. "Why did you ruin our family? Did you think about us?" he asked, his voice cracking under the weight of his emotions. Kate's eyes welled up with tears as she looked at Nick, her heart aching at the pain she had inadvertently caused. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself before responding. "When it all started, I warned Al about everything," she explained, her voice thick with. "I told him that we couldn't keep going like this, that it wasn't right. But your father, he kept coming. I never meant to hurt any of you. I'm so sorry." Nick stormed out of the apartment, wandering aimlessly as he processed the shocking revelation. He felt angry with his mother for not telling him that evening. He called Sarah and told her everything when he asked why she had never divorced Al. Knowing the truth, Sarah explained that she had considered it, but was concerned about Nick and Ashley. She had married Al when he was already a successful businessman, and she wasn't sure if she could support her children alone in case of divorce. Time passed, and with nearly everyone in the family aware of Al's double life, he didn't feel remorseful. He didn't see it as cheating. Since he had fulfilled his family's expectations by marrying their choice of a woman, it was evident that he never truly connected with Sarah. Parents sometimes want the best for their children without considering whether it will work out. In this story, everyone suffered: Sarah and her children, Al's daughter from Kate, and even Al himself at the hands of his parents. Nick's severe communication with Amelia is dating his half-sister was beyond his principles. He also stopped talking to his father and focused on working hard, learning valuable lessons from his family's experiences. A few years later, Al had a song with Kate and eventually stopped hiding his second family. When Nick got married, Al brought all his children from both families to the ceremony, declaring that they were still one family despite everything. They met and enjoyed each other's company, but Kate wasn't present because she wasn't welcome. As Al grew older, he began to feel increasingly guilty about how he had treated Sarah. He often came home drunk, apologizing to her for ruining her life. Sarah didn't want a divorce and chose to continue living this way until the end. She was grateful for her children. At his wedding, Nick stood nervously near the altar, waiting for his bride-to-be to walk down the aisle. His gaze drifted over the gathered guests and his eyes locked with Amelia's, his half-sister. The memory of the tumultuous journey they had shared caused an awkward feeling in him, but as Amelia smiled softly and gave him a supportive nod, he felt relieved. To this day, the families live as though nothing happened. A and Sarah continue to share a home, but they don't have any intimate relationship with each other. Theirs is a practical arrangement, semblance of normalcy maintained for the sake of their family. Al spends more time with Kate. Nick, now raising his son with his wife. Bella has distanced himself from his father, is determined to be independent, no longer accepting any help from Al. Their relationship has become strictly business, with Nick focusing on building a stable and happy life for his own. Surprisingly, Amelia and Ashley have become really good friends. She ended up attending the same university as Elena, which in a way was as if destiny had conspired to bring them together. They began to get closer, often talking about their dad and Al's shared funny stories. It was a unique feeling to know that they shared the same dad and have such things in common, yet their moms seemed to harbor such animosity against each other. The two women have never met, and Sarah doesn't have any plans to do so. Her story has come a long way from the beginning with how she is choosing to move forward in her life. Watching her improve and the strength of her resolve has been uplifting. You would be wise to subscribe so you can hear more about what she's doing next. We'll be back soon.